Bonjour, good morning. It's an honor to be here. My name is Gord Johns. I'm with the federal NDP, and it's an honor to be on the unceded lands of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. I'm here today with Barry Tier, Pacific Regional Vice President with the Union of Canadian Transportation Employees, and Jeremy McNulty, who's also with the Union of Canadian Transportation Employees, and he's a firefighter at the Vancouver International Airport. This past summer, we know that the Union of Canadian Transportation Employees released their report, the analysis for ARFF services in Canada, which found that Canada is falling short of both its domestic and international requirements under the International Civil Aviation Organization. And the report found that the Canadian aviation regulations are not in alignment with 73% of the International Civil Aviation Organization rules and regulations governing airports. And Canada is also not publishing where and how it is not in alignment with the ICAO as required. Canada is not providing the level of aircraft rescue and firefighting at all of Canada's airports required under the ICAO standards, and the Canadian aviation regulations do not specify rescue service in the mandate of the aircraft rescue firefighters services, although the ICAO regulations explicitly require this. So last December, the House of Commons unanimously, it passed the motion M96. It wasn't unanimous because it wasn't supported by the Conservatives. But it passed, and it called on the government to reflect airport rescue and firefighting standards published by the International Civil Aviation Organization, specifically by giving firefighters at Canada's major airports the mandate and resources necessary to reach the site of a fire or mishap anywhere on an operational runway in 3 minutes or less, and specify that a required function of firefighters be the rescue of passengers. And despite all parties, like I said, except for the Conservatives, voting in favor of this motion, here we are almost a year later, and Transport Canada and the Minister have given no indication that they're acting to implement change. Most Canadians would be shocked to learn how badly Canada has fallen behind our international peers. The current abysmal state of the Canadian aviation regulations is particularly harmful to people with disabilities, elderly people, children, and any individuals who would not be able to get themselves off of an aircraft in an emergency situation. Passengers traveling at all Canadian airports deserve to travel safely. And they need to know that in the event of an emergency, trained airport firefighters will have the resources and the mandate to help them. The Union of Canadian Transportation Employees has done the work of identifying the government's shortcomings. Now it's time for the government to step up, heed the will of Parliament, and actually take action to keep Canadian travelers safe. They've been given all the tools. It's past time that they use them. Now it's an honor for me to introduce Barry Tier. He's the Pacific Regional Vice President of the Union of Canadian Transportation Employees. Barry.
Thank you. Thank you, Gord. We believe Canadians and our international guests deserve the international standard in aviation regulations. We have international commitments. Canada is signed on to ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. Our international partners and international travelers expect more, and Canada can step up to meet those regulatory standards. This report shows many places where Canadian aviation regulations are not in alignment with ICAO. Canada must notify ICAO and publish where they are not in alignment. Canada needs to do better and make sure that travelers can count on being as safe as can be. Specifically, rescue services should be explicitly part of the mandate of our airport firefighters. We have to have rescue as part of airport firefighting. Thank you.
Now it's an honor for me to introduce Jeremy McNulty. Jeremy, like I said earlier, is a firefighter at the Vancouver International Airport. Jeremy.
The traveling public shouldn't have to think about firefighting services when they're traveling, but that's exactly what I do when I get on a plane with my family. I know these regulations, and unfortunately, they aren't what most people would expect when they are traveling within Canada. Nobody wants to think about the scenario that necessitates these kind of regulations, but our members know that emergencies will happen. The traveling public might be surprised to know that in most Canadian airports, that firefighters will not enter an aircraft or can't when people are in need of help. All travelers need to know what to expect when they're traveling within Canada. Firefighters assume risk to help others. It's what we do. We need regulatory change to help us be able to give us the tools to help the traveling public. We ask is this: make our mandate what it should be. Give firefighters what we need to help the traveling public when they need our help.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. Now I'll go to questions.
For journalists on Zoom, if you have a question, please use the raise hand function. Pour les journalistes en ligne sur Zoom, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction main levée. Is there something you would like to add to your statement?
Just that, here we've got right now no Minister of Transportation. The President of the Treasury Board's doing this on the side of her desk. We need action. Canadians shouldn't be worried about if there's an incident that takes place on an airport, that they're not going to get looked after and that they're going to provide the safe fire rescue that they deserve and need. And also putting firefighters at risk. And that's something that we don't talk enough about, the important work that they do and the heroes that they are. But we're not meeting three-quarters of the international standards that have been set out. This is something Canadians should be deeply concerned about. There's huge gaps when it comes to fire rescue. If there's a fire on an airplane and the firefighter's not having that ability to be able to help someone that's inside an airplane, especially children, elderly, people living with disabilities. This is crucial that the government close this gap. This has been talked about since the 1990s. And the government of Canada is failing. We know Conservatives don't want to deal with this. They'd rather download to municipalities, and they're not worried about the safety risks. Leaving those gaps is not a concern of theirs, and that's unacceptable. And the Liberals supported this motion. They need to act. They're in government. The expectation is that they take action. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the conference. C'est ce qui conclut la conférence. Merci.
Merci.